Finance Committee, this is our final meeting of the season, and we are here to approve past minutes and to revisit any warrant articles that had amendment changes. So if you'll introduce yourselves from this side of the table, please.
James?
Speak right up, James.
So,
James Stewart.
Tom Downing?
Lori Davis.
Tom Plow.
Andy Hagman, Nicole Herbst, Megan Thelen,
Matt Whitlock.
Chris Haig.
Neil Kirk.
Excellent. Okay, Matt, let's start with the minutes.
We had no suggestions to change them.
That's because no one read them, or because everybody read them and loved them?
Okay,
Right.
so motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, I
So
would,
moved.
Second,
well, you move, I second.
Okay.
discussion. Call for a vote. All in favor of accepting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions? Great. Okay, first warrant article that was amended, which one is it?
As far as I recall, there's only one that was amended, and that was the one dealing with the schools
Yeah.
for the planning.
It's 75,000.
Yeah, that
Wasn't
was
the fire department one amended as well?
Now, let's get the
Oh,
schools
yes,
done
Fire
first.
department was too.
Yeah,
An
I
additional
had,
Correct.
to add.
Fire department?
The, Dennis's,
The 250,000.
Dennis's article.
Right, oh, yeah.
So it's not
Okay.
really the fire department, but it pertains to.
Well, let's start with the schools first.
Okay, Article 5 of the school, or actually, I made the amendment. because,
What is that noise?
Me, sorry.
Okay,
I moved my cup.
okay, what did we change it to, Tom?
Remove the wording for kindergarten. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Shall the Ware School District raise and appropriate $75,000 for the purpose of hiring a firm to conduct a study of space and space needs in the district and the appropriate programming use of that space? Before, it was specific to the kindergarten, and our response to that was 5-7, not to recommend. While the committee would like to see a space needs study, it would prefer not to see it tied specifically to kindergarten, but rather the entire school district. That was the purpose of the amendment, is to more coincide with what was said here.
May I ask a procedural question if you're done talking about,
I'm done.
sorry. I just didn't want, so, because I didn't want to make a quick decision. So typically when this happens, does someone put a motion on the table to recommend, or is it a motion to
Well, first we
reconsider? That's what I'm trying to understand. What's the procedural steps from here?
First, we discuss the fact that we have now got a changed article.
Okay.
Then we say, do we have a motion to change our vote? Does anybody want to do that?
Is it to reconsider though,
No,
Neil?
no.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying,
Evidently,
right?
that's not necessary.
No.
You could do whatever you want, but our
You're making
practice
it
has been that
complicated.
anybody at any time.
That's, I'm asking a question because I don't know. It's complicated in my head, so,
Yeah.
Anybody
thank
at
you.
any time can move to change one of our recommendations.
Oh, so not,
Whenever
I
we
got what
make
you're saying.
recommendations, the understanding is we can revisit it. Because, for example, let's assume that this is 75,000. Let's assume we recommend this. Somebody may say, wait a second, I want to keep the tax rate down, so we need to go back and look at Article X and vote against that so that we can offset the $75,000 we just voted on now. Perfectly legitimate. You don't need motions to reconsider.
Fair
That's
enough.
been our practice.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So discussions on this, the change.
I think that the comment that I would just want to make is, it seemed like the whole committee had similar concerns about the specifics of this article, right? And it seems to me like Tom's motion addressed one part of it, which was making sure that they were addressing the entire school system, not just kindergarten. Is that the impression that everybody else got?
Yeah, that's my impression.
Was there another, and forgive me for not, was there another objection that people had brought up other than that when we deliberated?
$75,000 increases the tax rate.
That would be my only remaining reservation.
Is that the,
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, I just couldn't remember exactly what we were
Yeah,
debating, that's
it's-
all.
I had the note here of 9 cents. Is that the correct
Yes?
That's what I have.
Yes.
Okay.
Microphone,
Uh,
become friends.
We didn't have a large turnout at the school district meeting.
No.
But from those who did attend, I got the impression that the kindergarten issue is not going away. And it will come around again every year until something happens. So a study would be preferable to jumping in and doing something that costs money that then is ill-considered. Nothing can happen between now and next March except a study. They can't build a building between now and next March. So this is kind of like the minimum to answer those people who want kindergarten. Because I don't think they're going to give it up. I think that this is a thing they're going to keep asking.
And for the naysayers to go on that, the people who don't want full day kindergarten, this could also be their proof to the school board that our schools, at their current capacity, cannot hold kindergarten. And not the full day kindergarten. Not to say that I'm against full day kindergarten, but I think that this study it helps both sides in a way. It's like, let's see what it says. Like, can we, what our capacity is going to be, what these new houses being built, like what our space needs going to be in 5-10 years for not just full day kindergarten, but 1st through 8th grade. And do we have the capacity to, more than just next year and the year after that they're saying, oh, we can handle it, but can we handle it for the next 10 years? And I think that's my hope would be out of the study that we would get is, what are our needs as a school, as a Ware school district in whole?
I'm totally against it because the tax rate is going high. We went off the charts last year. We have people that are making $74,000 a year, and we are making a sizable increase this year. People are moving out of town because they cannot finance their homes. There comes a point in time where we as a committee need to say, can this wait? The schools have not, while we need a study, they haven't really looked at their own space needs inside themselves. They've had 2 years to address this, and this year they made the marvelous statement of, we've been working on this since last March. And what they came up with was the same thing they came up with the year before. The middle school was built with huge capacity. Our enrollments are going down, and I don't want to spend $75,000 just to have a hypothetical study done. I think it needs to be slowed down, and we need to take into account the taxpayers, which we really haven't done this year.
Just, we have done so many things in the town without studies that have led to not so good results. The highway garage, which became very controversial, was one that was done. At first, it was a proposal for a study, but then we're going to do a design build. The design build came out with a different design than what we started with, and, all whatever broke loose here. Where if we had had a study and had specific plans in place, this is what we're going to do, this is how it costs out, it would have been a more professional way of doing it. And I think that we get into more trouble than we do good by going into something without a study to go with it. Just concerning the tax rate, excuse me, Neil, may I just, on Monday night, the Board of Selectmen, I wasn't there, but I got the information that was going to be in the minutes anyways, looked over what there was available in the fund balance, undesignated fund balance, even after the articles here, and it's very substantial. And I have no doubt that the Selectmen, when they look at their balance come next October, when the tax rate is set, will be able to do something very significant with the tax rate from the undesignated. Just to give you the unaudited fund balance at this point, is like $1,727,000. In order to retain 5% of that, they need to hold back $1,057,000. So there's an enormous gap there. Now, you take out 80,000, which is approximately what these articles are doing. I think there are 3 different articles that suggest taking from the fund balance. You still got you got a lot to work with there to help control the tax rate. If you'd like, Naomi, you can tell me if I'm off base with that, but it should be in the minutes, right?
It is.
Of the meeting from Monday, so, they're in good shape with that, and so it can offset quite a bit of the tax rate that we're looking at here. And of course, even though this is school, the bottom line is the tax rate for, if you take it off the town, it balances out with the school because it's all one tax bill when it comes right down to it, even though it specifies the school, the state, the county, the town.
But
So-
it's the town that gets hit to solve all these problems as opposed to the school handling their own issues.
But the parents are taxpayers of these kids. It's
So
not
are
like
we
the kids
people
aren't-
that don't have kids.
No, but you're,
Neil had a.
Go ahead, Neil.
I hear what Tom is saying, and before he made his statement, I was going to say, if you're in favor of this, where's $75,000 we can cut elsewhere? I'd like to remind you folks that the reason why we have a fund balance is that taxpayers put more into the pot than the selectmen spent. When we had our discussion, I explained that this year, it was $322,000 that went into the fund balance was due to the fact that the police couldn't hire people, that was $200,000, and the fire department didn't hire them at the right time, that was $78,000, and the rest was miscellaneous. So, the taxpayers, in effect, were overtaxed, had to pay more than necessary to create the fund balance. So when you say it's there for us to spend, as a technical matter and a legal matter, you're correct. But as a fair balance, you have to recognize that this is just another expenditure of taxpayers' money. As if we had no fund balance, or the fund balance were exactly right and there were nothing left and it was $75,000 that's coming out of their pockets. It is the same. That money was collected in excess of needs. It should be returned to them. And if we were really good, and you can never be perfect at budgeting, we wouldn't have this problem. We would never have any excess in the budget. The budget that we appropriate would be fully spent for the purposes, and there would be no money that goes into the fund balance. So,
But
I share Lori's concern that if we're going to go ahead and vote in favor of this, and there's a good argument for spending the money to do this, we have to find a way to pay for this, I believe, without hitting the taxpayers.
Is there a mechanical issue that's making that noise?
Laurie's chair.
Probably my chair.
Oh,
is it
okay.
her chair?
Oh, is it?
Okay.
Wanted to make sure it wasn't the taping of
It's a
this.
ticking bomb.
Apparently Lori wants to get out of here quick because she's fidgeting.
Lori wants to wrap this meeting up.
Can I ask, Chris, just for a little bit of clarification? I wasn't quite clear where you actually stand, and I think you were talking about, it almost sounded like this would be an effort that would be for naught, because it's so far out, meaning if the taxpayers spend the money
No,
now.
I didn't
Can you
mean that.
clarify?
We heard in various places in our last three deliberative meetings, oh, you can't pass this because then they're going to do X, Y, and Z. If we pass this, nobody's going to do anything further than a study. That's what I was saying. Because some people are afraid that if a study passes, then all of a sudden you're building a building.
Oh, I got what
You
you're
know,
saying.
and it's a step by step. And if we don't take the first step, people will keep coming back and asking for this. I still have mixed feelings about this article, if you want to know where I stand. But recognizing the will of the people, I heard people still saying we must have kindergarten we must do this. And to me, there is no reasonable plan right now. We need a reasonable plan.
Right. So when we had gone to the original school board meeting where they presented their warrant articles, they had a $350 warrant article for, a $350,000 warrant article for full-day kindergarten. They took that off because we told them that they needed to have a space needs study. So they took it off and only did the space needs, which is $75,000. I think it's unfair for us to tell them that they should adjust and do a space needs study first and then tell them that, oh, never mind, we're not gonna support you.
So will you propose $75,000 of reduction elsewhere?
I would have to look to see.
Because if you do that, I'm willing to vote for this. Because I agree with you that
They,
this is
they
important.
reduced their ask by $350,000.
That's
No, I'm
not-
talking about now.
I understand,
Yeah.
but the town, there's plenty of people that are still pushing for full-day kindergarten. It's gonna keep coming back up. And if we don't do a space needs study, that's gonna be our argument again next year, is that they don't have the space for it. And I feel like our argument next year is gonna be weak.
One other thing I'd point out, the school board has the authority to spend money up to the amount appropriated. They have a bottom line budget. If this article were to fail, nothing prevents them from spending $75,000 on this. And I'm not suggesting that they do it by reducing some of the things for which we've given them appropriations. I'm just suggesting to you that historically, based on the normal budgeting process, they will have at least $75,000 of unspent money at the end of the year, which they could use for this purpose. Now, admittedly, that has to go back to the taxpayers, and you can make the same argument that I made before against it, but at least that is the fact for the schools.
Matt?
Does no means no not apply here? It does apply. So if the voters say, no, you can't do a study, they can't spend the money out of their ending fund balance to do a study anyway. Voters said, no, you're not doing a study.
I think you may be right on that.
And Naomi is shaking her head
think you
that
are.
he is correct.
The other thing to consider while we're saying that there are parents that want kindergarten, there are other residents in this town, and I'm not picking on anybody, but the one thing we have to understand is we do not represent one set of group or another group. We have to represent all people.
Well, we do.
And while we're at schools, we hear the parents, but there are a whole bunch of other people in this town too, and we have to look at that appropriately, not just one segment.
Right, and that's why we have the diversity that we do on the board.
I think if we have a split vote
Some of our
on,
diversity is missing tonight.
yeah,
It's 7-6, or it would have been. Now it's 7-4.
Ooh, you don't know that, not by this discussion.
Oh, I'll
I'm not
bet.
so sure.
Well, we don't need, we're
finish
not
the
voting,
discussion.
so let's just get the discussion
You'll get a
done.
little worried. I'd rather finish the discussion, because
Chris and then Nicole.
we had a split vote the last time we did this. I have no idea, because I've never taken a survey of the townspeople, but I would assume that an informed voter, if we have, that phrase, would look at some of these, and if there's a split vote on something that is going to cost a certain amount of money, they might say, I don't care what the finance committee thinks, I think this is how I will vote. I don't feel that our vote is the last word if somebody disagrees with an article.
Nicole?
Well, that's it.
Nicole, you keep trying to get in here and everybody closes you out. It's your turn.
So I'm still on the fence on this one, and I keep
That's
going back
fine.
and forth. But my thought on this has more to do with property value, because who's going to want to buy my house if we don't have if we're the last town that doesn't have full. Again, that's a thought that I had on how does it affect my property value.
Real estate-wise, it's not hurting anything.
Big point.
And I
No, she's
checked.
spot on.
Well,
I moved in
I've
this
checked
town.
with, I have several friends who are realtors, and it's not a breaking point at this point.
But I will say that I know people who have thought about moving to Ware, and they don't move here because we don't have full-day kindergarten.
The only reason I moved here is because I put my kids in the villa because they had all the kindergarten. I paid a fortune for it. So I'm one of those people that may not have moved here. My wife's an educator. So I'm not saying for or against property values. I'm just telling you that's factual. I went through it. Well, my kids are 16
No,
and
I'm
15.
just-
But I'm just telling, we didn't have all-day kindergarten then. And so we were on the fence, and that's something we figured out in advance. And we came, and I'm glad we did.
Speak.
Well, education and a well-educated citizenry affects everybody. It's not just the people who have the kids in school at a given time. And you might say, well, we're talking kindergarten here, but the reality is that your high school dropouts start to become high school dropouts in the primary grades by not having a base that leads them to the finish line, so to speak. I had a superintendent who was very vocal on that. You know, it doesn't all of a sudden, as you're, in most cases, when you're a junior in high school, think I'm going to drop out. It's because you've had failure along the way that's put you behind more and more, and when you reach the finish line, you don't make it. So anyways, I'm just differentiating because I think that every level counts, whether it's kindergarten or whether it's the junior year in high school. But my main point was that we needed an educated citizenry in order to function as a town, as a state, as a nation. I don't mean to sound aloof on that, but it's something I deeply believe in.
Nicole,
just
anything
add-
new?
Well, I
She had her hand up,
Okay, I just wanted to add a stat to his
but
thing.
she's,
No, I understand. Go for it, Nicole.
poor woman never gets in here.
For Neil's point, so if we say yes for 75,000 here, and you're saying, should we look somewhere else? We would probably have to look to the town to take money off, which isn't fair.
You
So,
could take it off the schools. You could vote against the school budget.
that's not like no one police car or something or other.
But the
It's,
vote was quite close. 7-6.
right.
And the schools always have money. Megan,
your
you said you.
Oh, I was just
you
gonna
tried to say something, and then we shut you off.
No, you're fine. No, I was just gonna say that to Tom's point, that part of the reason that I want to say our town does so well is my husband found a statistic when he was looking for something else, that as of 2017, our town has like a high school or above education rate of something like 95%. I think that is incredible for our town.
Did you say high school?
High school or above, right? So meaning that every single person in our town, 95%, either has a high school degree or above.
And I'm sorry, but I assumed that was the case just about all over in New
No,
Hampshire.
it's not.
God, no, the state has historically very high dropout rates. It has,
And-
thank you,
should it- and
GEDs,
shouldn't-
which isn't the same as a high school diploma.
Yes.
I would love that. Again, it comes from my spouse who's an educator, but that's a phenomenal number.
It is, isn't it? Like, I was shocked by that number when
And
he
we
was
don't
like,
have
did you know?
kindergarten.
What?
And we don't have
No,
kindergarten.
no, no. My point is,
Arguments on both sides.
how many, but let me finish.
Maybe that's the reason.
But no. Because how many people in this room went to full day kindergarten? How many people in this room and in our town did not grow up in this town? Yes, we have a huge portion. We do have I don't want to say a huge portion. We have a decent portion of townies, as you will. But there are lots of people in this town who I want to say majority of my friends did not, and the people that I know did not grow up in this town, grew up in places where they had full day kindergarten. I'm not saying that I'm pro it or whatever. I'm just saying that this is, as Tom said, we want educated citizens. Let's continue by doing that. We're not approving full day kindergarten. We're not saying in any manner that we think that full day kindergarten should be voted in. We're just saying, let's take the next step to see if our town can handle full day kindergarten. If our town can handle the increase in houses. Just taking the next step to ensure that we are supporting all children.
Okay, the
in
job
our
of the
town.
finance committee is to decide whether or not it is financially functionable for the
I-
town. So I agree, I hear your passion, Megan, I do. But it is not our job to lobby each other. We're allowed to have our points of view, but we
Isn't that
have
what
to
we're all
look.
doing?
But now we're driving more into really getting into minutia that we're not supposed to
Lori,
be.
Lori, with all respect, I appreciate what she's saying, because what she was talking about is actually not for or against kindergarten. What she's talking about is what the particular article is about, which is the benefit the town, is it financially prudent, and would the town get the benefit if we voted this in, we recommended we voted it in. So I actually think it's on point.
Okay.
I think that we probably beat the dead horse, no offense. I mean,
No,
I
I
think it
know,
was
I
a good,
agree.
it's a good
Horse
discussion.
is dead.
Let's change
Any
those.
more new commentary? Matt?
I would just point out that the HVAC units article is 80,500. It's almost exactly the same amount. So if you wanted to make a trade, maybe that would satisfy Neil's desire to swap one for the other.
But that's the free money, right?
Yeah,
What do you mean free money? There's no free money.
Oh,
Yeah,
I know, but you know what I'm saying.
no, we don't.
Because if we vote that down, that will go into the unreserved fund. It
Right,
could be used to
right.
reduce
What
taxes.
Bernie was getting on his mind.
I don't know if this is right or not, but looking on my spreadsheet, it's only, if we
Must be yours.
look back at the proposed versus the default budget for the Ware School District, I think it's a 1.64% difference, and it's an amount that, I mean, compared with the whole total budget, it doesn't seem huge. They held their budget down, so they would be able to operate still. I don't know what they would take out.
That would be up to them.
Exactly.
and I,
Based on past years, we have, or last year at least that I was here, we have voted on the article, and then someone has brought forward that they want to re-vote on a different article. I say, we vote on this article, we see where we stand, and then at that point, if someone wants to bring forward to re-vote on a different article, we can do that.
That's
Go ahead.
certainly one way to do it. The other way is to have an understanding as to what's going to happen, so we can go forward in unison.
I think it takes away from the purity of the vote, to be honest. Not all of us, not all of us, not all of us.
Purity of the vote?
Well, not all of us are seasoned politicians, and negotiation is not a skill that we all are experts at. I happen to be in sales for
Purity of the
25 years,
vote.
but that's different. The purity of the vote is we're voting on this article and not considering something else at the same time.
But Tom, the whole point of this committee is to look at the
Whole picture.
as well as the individual, to determine whether the whole is an affordable whole.
Sure, we did that, and now we're going
We
back and
did?
revisiting it. No, when we voted the first time to recommend or not recommend.
No, I think we were pure in using your terminology, and we went article by article without
Sure.
even considering the total impact.
Well, I
Okay.
think we did, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We did consider the total impact, because then at the end, Matt said, do we want to reconsider anything, because this is the total impact, and everyone said, no, we're good. Or something along
Well,
those
actually,
lines.
Basically,
Yeah, we readdressed an article, didn't we? We
we
revoted
tried
it.
to.
Okay, so
Yeah, so
we
I
did
mean,
have
we
a
did do
good
that.
faith attempt already, but we can do it again. I mean, that's fine too.
Okay, is there-
Question?
Go ahead, Nicole.
So practically speaking,
Yes, ma'am.
if we don't approve this and it's not approved, so no means no, they can't do the study. If the kindergarten thing is moving forward, they would still have to do the study. So if this got pushed off to next year, what does that mean? Like, what's the ramification?
They just have another year of wrestling with this.
they'd have the, may I?
Mm-hmm.
They'd have exactly the same discussion that we've had for the last 2 years. We're gonna have to take the art room, we're gonna have to take the music room, we're gonna have to move the preschool someplace else, and we're right back where we started without knowing where that someplace else is. I mean, the phrasing of this, and it was intentional to add the programming use, I think was what it said, is that you do have spaces. You know, are they being used efficiently? That's part of the study, not just how many head counts there are or how many rooms there are, but whether they're being used efficiently or could they be used differently. So, you know, I think that if this doesn't pass, that we're in exactly the same spot. We're just gonna hear the same argument, because they're definitely gonna come back with a
But
proposal
what,
for
sorry,
kindergarten.
what's the detriment of putting it off 1 year?
Just somebody's not going to be happy about it, but it'll just be pushed off one more year.
And
It won't the town won't collapse. They will continue to hold school the way they are this year without all-day kindergarten. We'll still pay for the busing for kindergarten because that's now mandated. And there will be those that want it, those don't want it. They'll still be talking about it, but it'll just be another year of push-off. That's the biggest detriment we've got going. Neil.
There is one other thing that could be done without, if this article fails. There's nothing that prevents the school board, without conducting a study for which they pay, for creating a group within the school that looks at space usage. For example, the middle school is designed for 900 kids. There are only 600 kids in there now. Why is it that that cannot be reconfigured? Now, it's true, I've spoken to the principal, the middle school principal and the former superintendent about this, and they both say that, no, we can't put more people in here. We can't fit the kindergarten in here. We can switch things around, but they couldn't put the kindergarten in there. But maybe if they look again, they could do something. Maybe it would only be temporary for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and eventually they would need more space. The point is that voting this down does not preclude them from looking at other options. It would only, as Matt said, preclude them from hiring an outside expert and spending money to look at those options.
Thank you.
New?
Well, I'm just going to put a note.
Okay.
I'll never be new again.
You're new every day, Tom.
Okay, I move to recommend Article 5 on the school warrant.
I second.
Discussion, we've had it. All in favor, raise your hands.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Nays, raise your hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Motion fails.
So I would suggest.
Now, do I
we
have to do a reverse vote on this? No.
There's no point.
Okay.
Just leave it be.
5 to 5, let the people in the town.
Wrestle it out.
May I suggest that the blurb needs to be
yeah.
revised?
Yes,
No, we
yes,
need to do
but
that.
we wanted to get the numbers done first. Now we get to go to Matt and his expertise. Yes, Chris?
One thing about suggesting that it be done in-house, that the superintendent's office or whoever do the study, this eliminates bias if we have a consultant, because they come in with outside
Right, but we're
eyes.
already
We had
done
that
with
vote.
that.
Yeah.
It's not our job to figure that
But
out.
I'm wondering if the split vote, we can say that a study is in the blurb,
Yeah.
I think,
Say,
that it's a less biased study, and some feel that a consultant would give us a less biased study. Can we say that? Or?
I don't think you could
No,
say that.
I
That
could
would
find a
not be good.
consultant who's very biased one way or the other.
so I think in the spirit of what we've collectively decided on other articles, I think that the blurb, and I forget what it is, it should still be somewhat neutral in nature.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
what,
I think we probably were, but
what does our blurb currently stand at, Matt?
Currently, it says, while the committee would like to see a space needs study, it would prefer not to see it tied specifically to kindergarten, but rather to the entire school
yeah.
district.
Okay, we have to fix that.
Right.
We definitely need to bulldoze that.
While the committee believes,
Sees a need for
sees the need for a space study,
eventually.
no.
Just say.
Because it
It's
sees
just
the
a
need
need.
for a space study.
Okay.
It believes that this can be handled within the school district without spending additional taxpayer money for an outside consultant.
I don't agree with
Don't like that?
wording.
What would you suggest?
well, sorry, Tom.
Just
Yeah.
say what it was, it's like, the committee had mixed feelings on this, and that's indicated by the vote, which is split evenly.
Well, except that our motion failed, so our recommendation is still not recommended 5 to 7.
That's correct. That's what will
That was
appear.
5 to 5.
No,
No.
that failed.
No, that's the
Oh,
fail
that's
on,
failed, so we're still at 5 to
We
7.
didn't change anything.
Well, then don't change the blurb.
Well, we have to
we
change
have to
the
change
talks about
that
the
because
kindergarten.
it's wrong.
Well,
But then your vote isn't correct because because I mean we would have had to re-vote on it anyways because they changed the amendment. So shouldn't that mean that we go off that when we write it, we actually write the new vote? Because no matter what, we would have had to vote on it.
It's a really good point.
Yeah, Neil?
But would it then say not recommended 5 to 5?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I think it should say 5 to 5 because either way we would have had to revote
Right.
on it.
Right.
Because it was amended.
Yes.
The old vote
I would
went away.
agree.
So it's technically a new
It's
vote.
a 5 to 5
Action
vote.
article.
So you're
It's a
saying
new
our
article.
previous recommendation was invalidated by the change?
Yes,
Correct.
correct.
Yes.
Excellent job, Megan.
But it's still not recommended
brain's still
because
working.
it's a tie?
No, it would be, there is no recommendation, one way or the other, which is
Yeah.
different from not recommended.
So it would say, and this is what you should put in the big bold type, without recommendation.
Is that okay
Correct,
with everyone?
because-
Leave it at that.
Yeah, and let
Yeah.
the taxpayers be the one that decide.
Yep, that's perfect.
And no blurb.
And no blurb.
No
yeah,
blurb?
No blurb.
I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that?
No blurb.
Do we want to ask? Hey, James didn't say anything. I'm okay with no blurb.
I'm okay with no blurb.
I think we've done that in the past.
The problem with that is that the purpose of this committee is to make a recommendation and explain it. Our recommendation is we're tied, okay?
That pretty much
So,
explains it.
so we should, at the very least, if we're going with a 5-5, we should say something yay and something nay.
Okay.
It's a good point.
So
Well, just say
so
5 yay, 5 nay.
Yeah, that is.
Again, on the,
Yeah,
on the.
Just say
for-
the committee has reached an
James
impasse on
is
this.
James finally wants to say
Go
something.
ahead,
So if we
James.
say, so if we want to kind of split our little blurb, we can say we can see the positives of having this study. However, at
see
this time,
negatives.
at this time, we can't recommend it for the financial reasons. It's too much of a.
Concerned about the tax impact?
We're-
Yes.
we're- I mean, that's.
Concerned about
But
the
that
town-
also
yeah.
kind of goes to the negative side more than the positive people.
Well, he did
Say
start with
some-
something. He
some
started with something
Starting-
positive.
Right. While the
start with
committee
something
sees the need
positive.
for
It's
space.
a starting point.
It's a starting point.
Write that, right.
Did you repeat
I have
that?
that.
Yeah, can you say that again?
Okay,
please?
everybody go nice and slow, one person at a time, please. James.
All right, so I would say while we see the need for a needs study, we can't necessarily recommend it at this point based on the financial impact to the town.
We don't find it
That's a
fiscally
negative.
responsible at this
It's
time.
not physically, not fiscally responsible. Fiscally.
Fiscally responsible at this time.
Prudent.
Some feel.
So I think that's
But
someone's
we've
opinion
given
on
you that at
fiscal.
the front.
You can put some, but if you don't put some, then you have to put something different.
Well, the 5-5.
Which, because the concern is for the tax
5-5
impact,
says that.
not whether someone's subjective opinion about whether it's fiscally responsible,
I mean, I
right?
think.
We've already covered that in the front half.
And I think this committee is pretty representative of what the town is on this.
He's the
Well,
one
we
that
have
did it.
different membership here tonight than we had at the other vote.
What do you have so far, Matt?
I know. While the committee sees the need for a space needs study, some committee members believe that commissioning a study would not be fiscally responsible at the present time.
Leave it at that.
Yeah.
You've solved the problem.
Thank you, James.
Yes.
Thank you.
What's the next one?
Let's let him finish writing. I know he types fast.
No, I'm
You
done.
good?
He's
You really
done.
that fast?
I already had it typed. That was what I was just reading.
Does anyone wish to revisit the article about the air conditioners?
Which one is that one? 18? Or
$80,000 for air conditioners and more money into the building fund. That's town side. I've forgotten the.
It was even more in favor than our recommendation when I tried to change
Yeah,
it.
so we're gonna leave it alone.
Yeah, if the sewer's gonna kick out or the pipes or whatever,
I remind you, there is money in the fund now to handle
I
such an
know that.
emergency. I think it's 50,000.
Yeah,
They
the
wanted
fund
it
is
to
at
end at
50K.
60,000.
could I ask a question?
Of course.
On Article 11 and 12, which are the two police cars, based on the deliberative session and public's reaction to marked and unmarked, I would ask, could we have a discussion of rewording one marked police cruiser versus one unmarked police cruiser? So
What do you
just
mean
the-
discussion?
To
Do you-
change, whether to keep it or to change it.
We can't change whether. the-
Arbler.
No, our blue.
Arbler.
Okay,
In the-
okay, 'cause we
in the
can't change
bold.
the
Yeah, no,
article.
in the bold.
Ours are the only thing that says marked and unmarked. The warrant doesn't.
Right, but that seemed to be what triggered a lot of the discussion, marked versus unmarked. So
Agreed.
is it something that we should remove
And just put police cruiser.
Police
police
cruisers.
cruiser?
But then there's no distinction
Right.
between the warrant articles, and people will not understand what they're buying
Well,
with
then
their
we
money.
could say, and I'm just,
She's just asking,
yeah,
it's okay.
so, police cruiser with extra lights, police cruiser, no, but you know what I mean? Like,
Correct.
technically, whatever the two differences are.
I think that Matt addressed it
Well,
perfectly.
Tom's got the floor
When I stood
here.
up at
I
deliberative-
really do. I'm not trying to blow smoke. I think it was addressed perfectly.
What did you say?
Well, I said that both vehicles are the same model. It's just that one will not be as fully outfitted as the other, but they're
Correct.
leaving it open to later on finish those upfits if they need to.
But that explained the difference without getting at the thing that everybody is concerned about, which is whether it's marked
Well,
or unmarked.
I think
That's a different issue.
That's Nicole's
No,
point, is that
That's a-
people were upset about that, so she wants to remove that.
But
I have
that
a
means
question.
people will be voting without knowledge of an issue that's very important to them on this? Is that what you want to happen?
Well, let Tom talk, and
It
then
just-
Chris
we have-
gets to
we have
talk.
two unmarked cars now. We do.
And that disturbs people.
They're administrative vehicles. I was thinking of using that as a wording here, because it is. It's administrative, primarily driven by the chief or the lieutenant.
But that bothers people too.
Administrative and patrol.
Yeah, right.
can't make
That would be what I would
It's
change
not
it to.
fully administrative, it's going to be for
But
patrol.
the
too.
other issue here, and it may put this all to a rest, is that I was talking to Naomi today, and I guess the town blurb already uses the word unmarked.
Oh,
So then we don't need to worry about
so
that.
then we can remove it.
Am I correct in saying that?
Go ahead, come on up. Since we're using your name quite a bit tonight, feel free to join the
Is that a
process.
change? I don't remember
So
seeing.
Monday night, we finished our purpose statements, and on 11, it says, our purpose statement is going to say this vehicle is replacing one in an approved fleet of 8 vehicles. The vehicle being replaced had been and was auctioned after it was determined to be unserviceable. The vehicle is scheduled to be replaced as part of the life cycle management program during the 2018 budget cycle, but the disposition was delayed due to change of command. The life cycle management program ensures the tax impact to citizens from vehicle replacement is minimized by strategically managing departmental resources so operational costs are static. This vehicle will initially be marked and used for patrol and emergency operations.
And what
Boy,
did it
by
say
the
for
time
12?
they read that, they're going to be tired.
12 says this vehicle is replacing one in an approved fleet of 8. The
Okay.
vehicle being replaced is approaching its end of serviceability and scheduled for replacement this year on the Life Cycle Management Program. The Life Cycle Management Program ensures the tax impact to citizens from vehicle replacements minimized by strategically managing departmental resources so operational costs.
So we just need to hear the last sentence.
I'm already there, so. This vehicle will initially be unmarked and used for patrol and emergency operations. The key word's initially. Which is
Correct.
the whole conversation we had at
Which
town
means you
meeting.
can
Something
move
I
it
also
around.
said when I stood up.
Initially is in
This is the
both of
initial
them.
state of the
Correct.
vehicles.
So,
One says initially marked, one says initial unmarked.
So, I was concerned about the unmarked, excuse me,
no, go right ahead.
too, but they've already put unmarked in there, so I don't think it's as much of an issue to me anymore. because-
I'd
Then
keep
leave
our
it.
language the way it is.
Right.
because
Now it's consistent?
It's
I'm sorry,
consistent.
I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah.
It's consistent now.
Since I do it over you, you certainly should
I
do it over me.
apologize. But it's consistent now?
Yeah,
Is it
Right,
not?
we're not the only ones saying it
yes,
now.
okay.
Is Nicole okay with that?
Is that okay with you? I mean, you'd prefer for us not to say it because they already said it?
I think, tell me if I'm
Well,
wrong.
my concern is that it's same with the kindergarten thing. There's like 2 issues. So there's what we're actually doing, buying the 2 cars, so the replacements, one's fully serviceable, the other one is, but it's not
Less
marked.
fully serviceable.
Well, the issue, from a finance perspective, the issue is not, should we have an unmarked car or a marked car? It's financially,
Correct.
so that's why I wanted to remove that, the connotation after seeing the public's reaction. It gives that connotation that takes away from the numbers, because we're here for the numbers, not for the politics, whether it was the kindergarten. It's not the politics
Correct.
of the kindergarten. It's the numbers.
Yes.
I guess that bothers me because in order for me to make a financial decision, I have to understand what I'm buying. I can't decide whether this car is a good thing if you only tell me some of the things about it, which you say are related to finances. I think the purpose of the vehicle is an absolute essential for somebody to make an intelligent decision about whether they want to buy it. And the purpose of this vehicle is to be unmarked so the chief
the
can use it.
purpose.
I'm sorry?
That's not the purpose.
That's not the
The
purpose.
purpose is so the chief can use it.
Right, and in order for the chief to use it, it has to be unmarked, or he suffers some sort of danger.
There are other, there are
There's
other,
a
there are
lot
other
of-
things
yeah,
for it
there's a-
too, but
Yes.
A lot of factors.
So maybe what we should do is approach it this way. We know that the town is addressing the marked and unmarked issue. The warrant article as itself does or does not address it?
Doesn't
Does
say
not.
anything different.
But the Board of Selectmen have addressed it. So for the fun of it, why don't we have a vote by the committee and say how many want to address it as marked and unmarked? How many for yes for marked,
Can I
unmarked?
offer an
We already
alternative?
did
Yes.
in our recommendation.
Right, but we're having a battle over here about that.
I'm fine with removing the words, but I still want the titles to be different so that there's some differentiation
Yes.
between what does this article mean and what does this article mean.
Right.
Well,
So-
this is how we had it.
Right, what I'm saying is, can we, without using the words marked and unmarked, address the different purposes of the two vehicles?
Yes.
That makes
Marked
sense.
and unmarked is kind of irrelevant, Neil. It's what is the vehicle.
the
It may be
purpose.
irrelevant to you, but I can assure you that every single voter in this town, other than, well, I shouldn't
I
say.
don't, I think you.
Most of the voters in this town are very concerned about whether a car is unmarked
And it
or
says
marked.
so in
And
the
it
purpose
says so
statement.
in the
But the way
blurb.
but the way the selectmen have written it, it's the last line in an absolutely dense paragraph that nobody will get through because it's boring and long.
Does our paragraph say without, other than the static, sorry,
There you
I can't remember, that it is an unmarked vehicle?
No, only in the top.
Just the title.
So
Thank
can we agree to just change it like to somewhere in, well, because we have when unmarked cruiser, the same rationale applies to this article as for the preceding article. You could just,
With the difference.
with the
of
difference
X.
of it being an unmarked
Initially.
vehicle initially. Well, can't we
Correct.
just put
May I,
that?
may I make just one point on this? And as much as I do very much respect Nicole, I'm not very quick to make a change in what we very consciously decided just because of what we may have heard from the taxpayers at a deliberative session. I think we're all very smart people and we made a decision. So if it's just to deliberate, to deliberate this blurb because of what we heard, that concerns me. If everybody legitimately agrees that maybe we didn't get it right the first time, that's a different story. I happen to completely agree with Neil that I think we leave it alone. I think it's consistent. We leave it alone. If you guys feel really strongly on it,
I'm going to ask for input as far as, I just want to vote. How many people feel we need to change the wording on the marked, unmarked? Everybody in favor of changing it, please raise your hands. Okay, we've got 3. Everybody for leaving it the way it is, raise your hands.
You didn't vote?
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
So that pretty much tells us where we're at. And unless anybody wants to change any more wording, it sounds like our blurbs are staying the same, correct?
You mean those two or any other blurb?
No, we're still in the police cruisers. And do we have any other changes to those wordings? Then we can move right on to something else. What's the next article we have a question with?
Was 24 amended, or did that fail?
It was
24.
amended, it was amended
50.
to insert $250,000 in place of
And
the
that passed?
125.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
oh, that's correct, thank you. And annually.
Annually.
Does,
But that, of course, is contradicted by the next line, which says it goes up 2% a year.
which was what the other one was 125 plus the 2%. Tom?
This is not a recommendation one way or the other, just my feelings, and it's the same feelings I had before, and that is, I think it should be left alone. So I didn't vote for the amendment. I know the purpose of it, and the purpose of it would have satisfied me in a sense, because I don't think that the money should be used for anything else. That's my personal opinion. But I think our recommendation should stand the way it is, because, again, from my point of view, I don't want anything to be done to it, because it opens the door to be done over and over and over again in the future. And so I would suggest we just leave our recommendation the way it stands.
Neil?
Leaving the recommendation, the vote, to stand is one thing, but I don't think our blurb is now accurate.
Has to be.
Please read our wonderful blurb.
Says the committee cannot recommend this article as written because the proposed cap does not align with the fire chief's updated plan for long-term capital purchases.
Well, it doesn't, but in the opposite direction.
Yeah, right.
May we just direct, make some statements that say that, that it doesn't align, meaning imply that it doesn't align in either direction, or we don't have validation or confidence, a high level of confidence that it aligns with.
No, this,
Is that,
we have a very high level of confidence that this will never be exceeded in our lifetimes, as it were, and that this money is probably at least 60% more than is needed to meet the fire chief's revised projections.
Okay.
So I think what we need to tell people is that, basically, I think what Tom was saying, that we don't think, at the moment, we don't think that this is a good diversion of money from this fund.
It's good.
I would agree with that.
Could we leave it at that?
I don't have an issue with that.
What do you mean by good?
Oh, a sound. let's say.
Appropriate.
Thank you. Sound or appropriate diversion.
Yeah.
Prudent.
There we go, that's even better.
Excellent.
That's Neil's favorite word.
Yeah, it is.
You have
She
a-
got me.
when you have a cap so high that you're never going to reach it, it's kind of
Right.
ridiculous.
You want to read that again, please, Matt?
I have, the committee does not believe that diverting revenue from the fund would be prudent.
That's fine.
I think that sounds good.
Can I change it to appropriate?
Yeah, that's harsh, yeah.
I'm only kidding, but it's amazing if you look back at the mail as how many of the recommendations have the word prudent in it.
How many years have you been on this committee?
Neil's been on.
He was born here.
Okay.
Are we good with this one? Everybody's happy? Any other article that's been amended or we would like to revisit?
I would like to ask if there is interest in revisiting the air conditioning article for $80,000. 30 or so
I'm
out of,
interested.
30 or so out of surplus and 50 or so out of pocket. I don't remember the exact numbers.
Tom?
Well, it's not too bad in here tonight, but we had some nights in here when it was
still-
unbearable.
I'm a little
still
warm right
dying.
now.
And there's definitely a need in this building to have these air conditioners replaced, and they can't replace them with like kind because they're out of business. This, or at least the Sanyo company doesn't make them anymore, so.
Mitsubishi.
I just, it's a workplace need, you know, to have air conditioning in the buildings. So, I would like to leave it alone.
We like these historical buildings. We want to keep everything natural. We want to keep glazed windows, and we want all these wonderful natural wood. So air conditioning wasn't natural. There you go.
Good idea.
Well, with the problem in the basement, you might have to.
Yeah.
Neil asked the question, do we want to revisit it? Do we want to go around the table? I mean, what do
Just a
you,
show of hands.
I think we did just revisit it.
I know, we did.
Okay, so is there anything else we want to revisit? Are you all,
You want me to make a motion?
sure.
Move that we not recommend Article
18.
18.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I see the need of air conditioners, but just like in my house, I don't replace them all in one fell swoop. I replace them as I need them. And I agree that if it gets overly heated in here, they can have a bigger air conditioner. I understand that the media camera room is very hot. I could see where they need a big one. Maybe we can replace those right away and take over time because we do have money in the fund. I'm just concerned about the tax rate.
I'm also concerned about the tax rate. There are two articles I'd actually like to see if we could recommend, which would increase our spending. I'm not going to go down that route because of that, but I'd be willing to leave this one alone.
Okay. Matt?
I'll say the same thing I said before. We're currently recommending a 2.6% increase in the tax rate estimated.
And the overall increase for the whole town, including the schools, is?
What do you mean? That's the overall
That
tax.
is the overall.
Yeah. that was
Not
on the-
including county and state, but yeah.
Okay. Further discussion?
I would leave it alone.
I would leave it alone.
Then I would say we're going to leave it.
Laurie,
We need
she
to have a
just needs to
vote.
leave. She's
The
clicking
motion
away
was
on the
made and
chair.
seconded.
Motion was seconded. That
So
means
the
we have to go
word-
to a vote,
The vote
right?
is to not recommend.
The motion is to not recommend.
So yes means not recommend.
Correct.
All in favor of saying yes to not recommend?
Raise your hands.
Right.
3.
All in favor?
All opposed to saying yes.
Thank you. Raise your hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yes, I'm fidgety tonight.
You know it picks up on the speaker though.
Oh. Sorry.
Just as a side, maybe snide remark, there is a virtue in not having air conditioning. It tends to reduce the length of meetings.
No, it doesn't. We've still been
It
here
might make
till
the people
midnight.
cranky
It
that make our
hasn't
tax
changed
rate,
a
though.
thing.
Okay, so the
It didn't
motion
work for the finance committee.
fails, so,
Question,
yes, ma'am.
did we, I have written in some kind of an amendment on Article 25. Did that pass, or was that just proposed?
It did pass, and that was just for wording.
Okay, so
It
we
was-
don't need to do anything?
Well, that's up to the committee, but I
Yeah,
would think not.
That corrected and.
It did. Naomi, I believe
Omission.
Naomi provided some guidance, and I was just the
okay, so
the
we're done.
person who happened to be there.
So we're done with that then?
Yep.
Okay, thank
Any
you.
other changes we want to make? Matt?
I have one regarding the language of the blurb on that same Article 18.
Okay.
I had a friend come up to me at the deliberative session confused, as was predicted, about this negative tax impact. So
And
I
laughed
would,
at
I
him.
would propose to change the wording on that to something slightly more verbose, but maybe clearer. My proposal is, if this article is defeated, the unreserved funds could be used to reduce the tax rate by an estimated 3 cents.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? I thought we were on Article 25.
No, we're
we
going back to
You just-
18.
you just
back.
switched.
Talking about the blurb on 18.
We
Oh,
had nothing to change on
I
25.
can read it from thing. No.
Right, so previously it said the estimated tax impact of rejecting this article is negative 3 cents.
And I think we kind of debated on that, too. and
We
teased-
did.
We teased Matt a little
I
bit on
tried to
it.
get that same language on the police cruisers and was defeated on that. So I think, I hear you that apparently it's confusing. So I would like to change it to something maybe less confusing, which is, if this article is defeated, the unreserved funds could be used to reduce the tax rate by an estimated 3 cents.
I think that makes sense.
That
But
makes
could I
sense.
Just,
I know it's could, it's
You
not
could-
will be.
but you could put that after every single article.
No, you couldn't.
Any article that has
Right.
fund balance in it, you could put it in that, yes.
Oh, I see what you mean, because this has,
The selectmen
This
have
was
chosen-
drawing from the
oh,
unreserved fund.
okay, yeah, okay, I get it.
Right, it would be 0 on the other ones that don't do the
Yeah.
same.
Are we good with the language?
Yes.
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 Everybody's happy?
Then that same,
Could I ask of Naomi what they're saying on this one? Because people are gonna say that's pretty pricey AC, but really, there's a little bit of leftover money for flush toilets. What was your wording? May we hear, Madam Chairman?
Loud meeting going on somewhere.
I'm overtired.
Very simple. Says the passage of this article would provide funding for replacing the air conditioning units at the town office and adding additional funding for unforeseen repairs to town buildings.
Okay.
Very short. We had to make up for that long paragraph.
Okay, are we good? Any more adjustments? Any more changes? Neil?
Just one thing. Take a look at this, our introductory paragraph. While I appreciate Matt's work, and while the chart is very complete, I found it, while accurate and helpful, overwhelming. Visually and informationally overwhelming.
This was by request of Dick Butt.
Well, we're doing more about Finance Committee than one person in town.
Fine.
So do we
Agreed.
think we need to simplify it?
In the past, we haven't talked about recurring.
Correct.
We've
That was
only-
his request.
Yes, and we've only talked about the others, and consistency isn't necessarily a virtue, but in this case, I think our past practice was much more useful and helpful because it was comprehensible and not overwhelming. And so I would suggest that we go back to that format, not changing any information in terms of this year, but eliminating the recurring.
Matt, may I borrow your copy? I'm embarrassed to say I don't have one of those on me, if I may. Thank you.
Excuse me.
What
Just like to read it real
what was past practice? Was the paragraph
like
has
this.
always been included?
So it's like
Okay.
half.
Yeah, all right, so,
That's what we had.
Would you show that to Tom?
The other Tom.
That Tom.
That Tom. The other Tom.
Tom D, not Tom C.
We have another one to look at. We've always stayed the same. I
It's
don't
a
know.
shame that Keith isn't here tonight because this addressed a concern he had, and if we remove this, then that concern will resurface.
What
Which is
was
his
his
concern?
concern?
the
The con-
recurring?
The concern was about the difference between the, what he wanted was to show that the school's ask on their proposed budget was not significantly higher than the default budget. It's just that if you look at this year only, the all no column has all of the one-time funds going back to taxpayers. So it makes the difference between all no and all yes seem huge, because it's only looking at the current year. But showing the recurring does show.
I find it confusing.
If that's what you want to say, it would take
A sentence.
a very astute person, more than people who have college advanced mathematics degrees, to get from this.
Really?
I think it's possible to do that, but you have to be pretty sophisticated, pretty knowledgeable, and frankly, pretty willing to spend a lot of time to reach that conclusion.
Tom?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is confusing, and that without a lengthy explanation of what it meant, that it's just going to confuse people, that the format used in the past is clearer.
All right. Maybe we should have a vote on that.
It's wordy, but it's accurate. It's you know,
That's right.
It's-
That's the problem.
yeah.
So you
I
want
can
to
see the
limit our
point.
information that we give out because people might be confused by it?
The one thing I don't want to do is confuse people. I'd rather have something simple and understandable than overwhelming and incomprehensible.
But
Can you make it into
the other
two?
question that comes back to play, devil's advocate, then are we, if we do not provide this extra piece of information, then are we not giving them the complete picture?
That's
And
always the
we've-
risk
we've
of not
been-
providing
That also
additional
becomes a
information.
tiger that bites us. So we have a push me, pull you on how you want to do this. So,
You could add, it's,
go ahead, Nicole.
Well, we're also switching vertical and horizontal information, so maybe do two small charts, one with the normal information based on last year and then one with the additional? Or would that be more
Oh,
confusing?
That will take even more space, right?
It's smaller.
Harder to
I
read.
do agree that not having that information is
Not being fully open.
right.
It
Transparent.
encourages people to vote all no.
Right, it will
Yes.
encourage people to vote all no.
Which I'm
and
fine with,
The
by the way.
funds that are supposed to go to the schools for, whatever purposes, they're gonna vote no for that, and it's gonna pass through to the taxpayers, and that wasn't the purpose of the funds coming this way anyway.
So you would say keep it? or-
I almost think that I agree that we should change the wording and make it more clear.
Yeah.
It's confusing as it
How
is.
could we do that?
Chris?
The word recurring, are those costs, have they already been voted in? Because that's something, you can't, if you put some recurring numbers in the all no column, people may be led to believe that they can vote against that when they already voted for it.
That's why it's in the all no column. Even if they said all no, that would be the price, that would be the tax rate next year.
That doesn't make sense looking
But
at
the
it.
recurring is going to confuse people, I think, that,
Okay.
Conti-
Can we change
Are
it
you
to
saying-
next year?
Cumulative.
I mean,
So
that's
Chris,
not
are you
entirely right
saying
either.
that they might be looking at that recurring business and thinking if they vote no, the recurring will not exist?
I don't know what it means, that's all.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
looking at it, and I'm pretty familiar with town finances, that I know what it means. And so if you put that out to people who are just here to vote, I think it's confusing.
James? I see your expression.
I think I would agree that it's a little bit too much information at this point.
All in favor of reducing the amount of information? Raise your hands.
How about re-clarifying?
That's,
Yeah.
no,
Oh,
but,
wait, what are
well,
we
we know
voting
we're
on?
talking about this
Wait, can
particular
we-
thing. We want to.
The question is, do we want this form, or do we want the form,
Go back to what we had.
that form?
Okay.
That's the alternative.
All
really.
in favor of wanting to.
Wait.
Go ahead.
There isn't an in-between or a
Yeah.
clarifying this?
That's what I would prefer.
How
Can we
would
change
you like
recurring
to
something that
change
makes
it?
sense?
Even if you change the wording, this is massive, and it's not self-evidence as to what it means. And I don't see, I could see having a separate chart, but even that would cause people to wonder what the point of the first chart was. It's,
The average taxpayer does not put in the intensive study that we do.
I mean, could you just put in parentheses, I don't even know if this would make even more confusing, but under like all warrant articles rejected, you have town, so I'm looking at this, it would be 315, but this would be, my brain's, 355, and then in parentheses, you could put recurring 363, is that what you're trying to say? Is if this was rejected, that this year, it would be, the tax rate would be, for the town, would be $3.55. And then the recurring tax rate would be $3.63. That's
what
what
it
you're saying,
means,
correct?
right.
So would it still be as confusing if just, instead of making it this big gigantic thing, you just, because it's confusing this way even to my economic brain, just putting it in parentheses under this, the 355, recurring tax rate of 363 or something. I understand wanting to be transparent and give all information. However, it's confusing the way it is.
so what would you get what would a
Why would that make it
taxpayer
easier?
get from that information?
I don't know.
355, recurring, 363. What-
Maybe not so much on the town, but look at the schools. That's where the meat is. Right. This year, if you say all no to everything on Ware schools, it'll be $7.95. But next year it'll be $8.85. This is to the point of this is a 1-year reduction only, and next year it's going to go right back up.
Yeah, because of those grants.
Right.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
Go ahead.
that,
Is there any possibility of putting this thing, the whole chart, on the town website and simplifying the flyer, so that if somebody really wants this, they can find it, but then the flyer has the
And a
simple.
note on the flyer, Dick Butt, please see town website.
Yes.
Can you perhaps guide us what you can and can't do on the website, and whether it's practical or?
Well, I guess it's your mailer, and one resident that talked to Matt, I don't know it's you guys' mailer. I just don't know if there's a way of, above your chart, you talk about $20.93 is a 2%, which means your bill would be that. Is there an opportunity, just saying, that for 2021, you could be looking at for reoccurring? I just didn't know if there's a way of doing it. It is, I will tell you, a lot of people looked at that and they were like, I don't know what that means, I'll go to the next page.
Yep.
You know, they're just gonna read the words because, we do have, I mean, a lot of elderly, that the minuses and the pluses and the reoccurring. It's just too confusing, and when they don't like it or get confused, I think they bypass it. So I'm just saying,
Is there a way?
it's really your mailer. I mean, we're happy to put it up there, but they're gonna get it in the mailbox too.
Is there a way we can put somewhere, write down that, make this more simple? Megan made an indication, but to say the big change going forward after this year is that we will no longer have the grants to keep the tax rate down, so it will go back up. If there's a way we can say that, that's plain English.
We said that in the
blurbs.
blurb.
In the blurb.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of confusion for someone to
This is
look at
very
this.
confusing.
I mean, I learned what he was doing after, but if you get someone that looked at this and say, I don't know what he means or where they came from, I'm not interested in even trying to figure it out.
Right.
And that's all. I don't want you to waste a lot of time when someone's just gonna say that nice paragraph at the top and we'll go to the next ones.
Yep. No, I think that
Or
makes
God
sense.
forbid they
Tammy?
say, if this is the way the finance committee is speaking to me,
Yeah, I think that's what they would say.
Yeah, it's just sometimes confusion
go ahead.
is deterred.
Can we add this, to our minutes?
What?
Like, put it
Yeah.
on the
Idea.
minutes, and
Yes.
then,
That's a
and
very good
then
idea.
simplify it
That'd
for
be
the.
good.
Okay,
The mailer?
yeah, for the mailer.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because your minutes go on the website, sure.
so the mailer would contain this information. in
simplified
that form,
Simplified version.
And then
The
the
minutes
minutes
would
would
have
have
the
this.
Yeah.
Tom?
Good idea.
Naomi, before you leave, Chris posed a question as to whether or not it could be put on the town website.
The minutes are on the website.
The minutes are right on
So
the
this
website.
is the, okay, that answers my question.
No,
So
I
this is
think
the
that's-
equivalent.
But to the
But I
minutes.
think
what
it's
you're
a
saying.
great, I think it's a great point, is you
They're
guys
not
have done
separate.
such a lot of work with it, that I just don't want to spend all of 3,700 things for someone not to look at the first two
Correct.
pages.
Right. No, I
You
agree.
know,
So if we can put this into our minutes,
yeah, he could cut and paste, sure.
Good idea.
So we're recommending to go back to the former format for the mailer itself. Is that
yes.
correct?
Everybody,
Just another point, if we move along, we could shave 4 hours off our previous meeting time.
Why do we want to do that?
Oh, one,
Because it's getting so warm in here again.
is this resolved?
yeah, I think everybody said yes.
So
Is
wait,
that correct?
question though, because the sides are different, are we then flipping it to
Going back to the
match?
previous format means this.
Okay, so you're gonna match it to that, so
Yeah.
this is gonna be all different.
Correct.
It will
Okay.
be transposed.
Perfect. Okay, just wanted to clarify the change.
Neil?
They may mail it back.
One individual,
Next year when we have the same question.
one individual who will remain nameless asked that we, in our description of the police contract, put in the total cost of the police contract for 3 years, which we have in fact done in the past.
That's correct.
So I wonder if we could do that now, and
Yeah.
I believe that information is available.
I have a question on exactly how that math is done, because I see where they add those up, but I don't understand why they're added up in
The
that
full cost
way.
of any 3-year contract is the increase in the first year, which also is an increase in the second year and in the third year. In the second year, there's another increase on top of the increase they got the
Yeah,
first
it's
year,
compounded.
which goes for 2 years. In the third year, there's a third increase, which they got. They got an increase in year 1, 2, and 3, and you have to add that to the increase in the year 2, and add that to the increase in the year 1. So it's sort of like a pyramid. In the first year, there's 1 increase. In the second year, there are 2 increases, year 1 plus year 2. In the third year, there are 3 increases, year 1 plus year 2 plus year 3. So as a taxpayer, over 3 years, I'm paying all of that. It's not just how much the first year raise is and how much the second year raise is and how much the third year raises. That would be less than is reflected in my tax bill.
Do you need it explained differently?
So you take the first year times 3, the second year times 2, and add the last year.
Exactly.
Because we're comparing to this year's, we're comparing to what the differences are going to be going forward.
If you turn down the
But I
contract,
double check,
you will
'cause-
not be spending this much money. If you approve the contract over the next 3 years,
can't
that's
pay
how
on
much
that.
money you'll be spending.
You also won't
Even
have
though
a police
even though
force, so.
this year, it's only the first year.
Yeah, you know, again, it's one of those things where it seems like it's a little extra information than, that's harder to,
This individual wants to make every contract as expensive as possible in the vain hope that people will not approve the contract.
no, I get that part of it. Just,
Do we really want to make a change just based on one person, one individual, as a committee?
We've done it in the past, and it is accurate.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but do we tonight really want to make a change based on one person, especially we voted not to accept comments on a deliberation? I realize we're just talking about blurbs. I don't want to get people too riled up, but do we as a committee want to do that based on one individual? And I appreciate you being candid that it was one person.
I say no.
No.
I also think that it adds another level of confusion with extra numbers. I don't know if it makes
Number's
sense.
bad.
So,
Does anybody want to?
do we,
I think we should. But if that's
all
not
in
the end.
favor of adding the information, please raise your hand, just so I know where people are at. All in favor of not adding the information, please raise your
Or
hand.
leaving it alone? How about leaving it alone?
That's not adding the information.
It's not a motion.
Okay, I think we're finished.
Anybody have anything else to bring up?
I did one thing. Excuse me. So this is my first year, and I was thinking about this the other night. And believe it or not, I actually have enjoyed doing this with you all, and I think that the diverse group that we have here, I'm actually kind of impressed. I think we collectively have done a pretty decent job. And I just wanted to say that I thought, considering how vastly different some of us are,
I would
I appreciate
second
that.
what Tom said, and I think the taxpayers can feel confident that we gave this sincere deliberation throughout, even up till midnight.
several times.
Yes, but as a footnote, I would add that our work could be more efficient were the schools to submit their budgets on the same schedule as the town. The town was very prompt this year, and we had to work very hard at the last minute to give the school fair consideration.
I think that every finance committee, at least the ones I've served on, has done exactly what Chris said. This one is no different, no better, no worse. I think the results of this committee are reflective of its composition. If you put a bunch of people with one persuasion on a committee, you get that result. If you put a bunch of people with another persuasion on this committee, you get that result. And this is reflected by the results tonight, as in all prior years, are reflective of the people who are on the committee. The one thing that has changed this year as compared with past years, I believe, is that in past years, we have always had an eye to the total impact every time we considered a particular article. Whereas this year, we really didn't do that until the very end, when we said, okay, can we afford this? And whether you like that approach or don't like that approach, that's the approach that we took as this committee, as compared with prior committees.
Anyone else have anything they want to add?
Motion to adjourn?
Great, let's go. Thank you.
Get to watch Noah.